Hello, welcome to another episode of the No Choftes podcast. It's the first of 2021. I'm your host, Stel. And before I introduce my guest, just like to say thank you for everyone that has been really supportive of this podcast. We've had some great guests, especially back in the last season. We had, last year, Marko Scepovic, Matt Derbyshire, Leandro, Guido Hoffman. We've been blessed with so many fantastic guests on the podcast, especially Thomas Mortimer, our Hungarian football expert friend. But now we have a Serbian football expert on our podcast. As you guys are probably aware, or you should be aware, we've moved quickly in the transfer market. We've brought in Serbian striker Marko Scepovic. Now, I don't really know too much about Marko. I know he had a spell at Olympiacos, played for Videoton with Henning Berg and Adam Lang. But I've got a gentleman here who should know a lot more than I do. Let's be 100% honest. He's from the Serbian football platform. It's Aleksa Vujic. Aleksa, welcome to the show, mate. How you doing?
Doing very well. I want to wish all your listeners a happy new year. I know that last year was very challenging and very demanding for many people, but I'm hoping that this year is going to be successful for everybody. I want to thank you for having me on. I feel very, very honored for the introduction you've given me, and I feel like I have to justify that, and hopefully I will. And I also want to wish Marko Scepovic good luck at his next club. He used to play in my club, the club that I support, Partizan. So hopefully I'll wish you good luck and hope I can do a good job of presenting his strengths and weaknesses to all the fans who are interested. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Well, Aleksa, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. And I'll tell you what, first of all, I'd like to thank you for jumping on board at such short notice because, I was trying to find a Serbian football expert, and being in the UK, it's quite difficult. We're, pardon the term, but we're quite foreign to foreign football,
Yep.
So having someone such as yourself on at such short notice is fantastic. But before we talk about Marko, how pleased were you to see Omonia knock out Red Star in the Champions League qualifiers?
Well, actually, I mean, kind of. Initially, I was very pleased, of course. My personal relationship with the rivalry isn't as extreme as it is with everyone else, even though I obviously very much dislike them. But there's an element of a benefit to it. I very carefully follow the coefficients. I very carefully follow those things. Them playing in Europe in these years is because of what we used to do in the last 10 years because we were the only Serbian team that was there.
Right.
And I have many friends who support Red Star. And so I say all of this in the sense that because of them getting knocked out, it was kind of problematic for us because we're not going to play, my club is not going to play in the Europa League next year because the coefficient,
Right.
we're going to be in the Conference League playoffs. And so it was important that the champions of Serbia get as far as they possibly can. And it was the same thing many, many years ago. So it wasn't as pleasant as I would like to see. On the same time, it was interesting. I actually said before that match, the historical significance mattered a lot. There was the great penalty shootout many years ago when Omonia played Zvezda, and it was ended up 6-5 on penalties. And we had a very bad history with Cypriot clubs and Partizan. We got knocked out to Apoel. We got knocked out to Wild Limassol. So I said, Cypriot teams, just be wary because they can, especially going there. And it was, I think, like 30-something degrees. It was played in the afternoon. So it was a wary game. And Omonia did a great job of shutting them down. Beat them on penalties, which takes a lot because they've been busting their way through penalties the whole time. So it was very interesting. And following Omonia has been interesting in the groups as well. Not so pleasant for me because I have friends who are PAOK supporters, and obviously Partizan and PAOK have their relationship, and you guys beating them kind of like, again. But they've done a great job. I have to say that's, I think, your first group stage ever, if I recall.
That's correct, yeah.
And in a group with Granada and PSV to do that well, and all the games were pretty good. I think only the away leg to PSV was like 4-0 or 5-0. Yeah. All the other games were, fairly decent for first timers. So Cypriot football has done well, and they've Omonia has kind of taken the mantle from Apoel, who was carrying it for many years, doing well in the Europa League and Champions League. And now they're the ones carrying it. So it's good. It's impressive. It's good to see a nation that's not a big nation. That I come from a small nation, and Cyprus is not a big nation football-wise, not even that big. But they keep pulling out big results, and it's good. I love to see it. I think that it's important that the balance of Eastern and Western football is kind of there because I'm tired of watching Champions League and Europa League where, you have 5 leagues and that's it. You want to see somebody progress far, like Dnipropetrovsk with Ukraine, many years ago, and they got to the final of the Europa League. Apoel got to the quarterfinals. So I do have a sympathy for all the teams that come from, Greece, Cyprus, Croatia. I do kind of for them. And when they can get one in on your biggest rivals, it's always nice. So it was actually pretty good to see.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned that team that begins with A. That's 2 strikes already, my friend.
Duly noted. Duly noted.
I'm joking. It's fine. I call it Abu Al Qaeda.
I saw that. That's good. Yeah.
Purely
That's
because
good.
of their behaviour when it comes to the recent COVID outbreak in
Um,
Cypriot football. But
mm.
we'll discuss that off the show because I've got a few fine choice words to say about them. But
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to
this
hear it.
isn't a show about them because right now, as we speak, they're losing 1-0 at home to Baralimni, which is beautiful. Anyway, let's talk about Marko Scepovic, right? 29 years old. He won 3 Serbian championships. He won the Greek championship. He won the Hungarian championship, domestic cup winner in Hungary and back home in Serbia. Blimey, as I said before, he's teaming up again with Adam Lang, who he was at Videoton, and also Henning Berg. Now, this move came a bit left field for a lot of Omonia supporters because, in all fairness, our transfer activity over the past 2 seasons, I'd say, since Papastavro came in and took over the club with Lako as the sporting director, everything seems to be hush-hush. There isn't really much that gets out. But this one, it's kind of been festering for the past 2 or 3 days. I know Marko Scepovic was quoted as saying that he was interested in joining the club. There were rumors that Rodrigo was possibly going to come in. But this signing kind of makes sense if you want to talk about how he has a relationship with the head coach. But in terms of the player, let's talk about his history, Aleksa, because I know that he was highly rated at Partizan as a teenager. What can you tell us about him from his early years?
Well, he came in at a time when the club was really focused on trying to promote a very strong academy. Partizan, at least at that time and even now, had an academy of a lot of very good young players, especially in that period coming through. And the manager at that time, who's our current manager right now in the second stint, wanted to have basically a full 11 of academy players, and he really wanted to push Scepovic very hard. It was an academy that at that time produced a lot of great names: Adam Ljajic, Matija Nastasic, Milan Suleimani, a lot of guys, Stevan Jovetic, a lot of guys that have gone on to have very, very good careers. And he kind of came in off the precipice of the Champions League qualification in 2010, which is one of the bigger achievements in recent club history. He had big shoes to fill at that point in time when he really broke through in the team because he was replacing, in my opinion, the best foreigner that was at the club in the last 15 years, a Brazilian striker named Cleo, who scored like 10 goals in the qualifiers. He scored against Arsenal. He scored against Anderlecht 3 times. So there's a lot of pressure on him to build up to that. We've had a lot of young strikers come through even before I started watching, and it was always a principle that the young strikers are the ones that really push the team forward because you don't have the privilege to keep them around long enough to see them develop and to see them actually stay on. I say all of these things to say that he had a lot of big shoes to fill, and that initially in his first year and a half or 2 years at the club, he was doing, I guess, what all the other strikers have done in the sense that he was developing. He had some games where he played really well. He had some games where he was playing not so well. He had a couple of performances in the derby that were great. He had some times when he would miss open shots, but those are things you expect from a young striker. He's developing, and it is what it is. But his last year at Partizan was really about his traits. I think that's more important is what the traits are like for him. In terms of him, he's a big guy. He's 6'4", I think. Mobile for his size, which is I think going to be very useful for Omonia, who likes to play at least in European games and counter-attacking football. And also, it's good in the domestic league because I assume you have teams that park the bus against you guys because you're a team that's competing in the top half of the table. So you need someone who can come in behind the lines and who can create chances and who can use his movement, like for example Olivier Giroud does with France. He's not, I mean, he's a great goal scorer, but his biggest attribute is that he creates space for everyone else because of his movement, because of his intelligence, because of his understanding of the tactical side of things. And Scepovic is, I would say, pretty decent in all those things in terms of an off-the-ball player. It's a good signing. I think that he is deceptively quick for his height, and it's something that still hasn't left him. Having watched him in Videoton and having watched him in a couple other teams, it's something that's going to be very useful for him. One of the downsides, I would say, unfortunately, is his finishing and his on-ball play. He is a good dribbler from at least when I remember him. If I haven't watched him in a long time, the last I saw of him was with Videoton because we played them in the Europa League playoffs, and his finishing, I would say, is average at best. I think that there were times in the 2 legs there where he really could have put us to bed, especially in the first leg and in the second leg, even at the start, and he missed all 3 or 4 of his chances. And those are things that aren't going to be great. He can head the ball well, but with the ball at his feet, it's hard for guys that are 6'3", 6'4" to keep the ball at their feet naturally. And he has bursts of pace and bursts of speed where you can go, okay, he can do something. But when he has to shoot or when he has to pass, it's always kind of clumsy. It's uncoordinated. And if you use him in a situation where you can use his physical attributes, whether it would be his strength and his movement, I think Omanie's found a great player for that level of football, and especially considering the economic circumstances. We have to understand that, I mean, French football is in a problem due to COVID. I mean, Cypriot football is probably even worse because there's no money coming in, match revenue is not there, ticket sales aren't there, so clubs are having a hard time. You can't go out and sign a £5 million player or whatever the standard for Omanie would be. So you have to find guys that are in the free agent market and just have to do what you can. He does have good international reputation behind him in the sense that he was capped for Serbia. He was at fairly respectable clubs for a long time. And I think considering the fact, I think it's a free transfer or it's a very small wage packet that's being given to him, I think it's a good signing. And I think it's a signing that hopefully can rehabilitate him. He was in Thailand for a couple of years, which was kind of, out of left field. But if the manager uses him in that sense, in terms of, like I said, using his physical attributes, I think that you've actually found a pretty useful player, especially for the domestic league, because the domestic league is the most important thing. Yes, it's nice to do well in Europe. Yes, it's nice to do well in the Champions League, but if you're not winning your domestic league, those things aren't there. And in the Cypriot League, where teams sit back, his movement and his strength can actually really help some of the other guys in your team, like Eric Balthiak or Jordi Gomez, or some of the guys who can shoot, who can move, who are more technically sound. He can open up space for those guys and for your other wingers. I know you have a loanee from Basel. I forget his name.
Yep.
Yep. So in that sense, it's a good move. I think it's low risk and good reward. I wouldn't say it's high reward. But I wouldn't expect any kind of great goal scorer, because even in the Hungarian league, when he was really playing it in good form, he had a manager who trusted him. He had teammates that he knew very well, and he had a system of play that actually suits him very well. They played a 4-4-2, which is probably best suited for. His highest tally was, I think, 13 goals, which is not, and he played 31 games. It's not bad, but it's not like, wow, blown away by
one
it.
in
So
two, roughly,
considering the economic situation, it's a good move, but I wouldn't expect any kind of great breakthrough from it. And if in the worst case, if he doesn't work out, it's a low risk, low reward, high reward move, and you move on with him. You bring a youngster from the academy in, and it's a good move. I do like that move. So I think it's okay.
Well, you said a lot of things that have resonated here, because we have struggled to score. Well, I say we did struggle to score goals prior to the beginning of December. I think we went 5 league games without scoring a goal. The form wasn't great. But the thing is, we were creating chances and we weren't converting them. And as I told you before we started recording, we've missed Matt Derbyshire, no shadow of a doubt. But at the same time, the likes of Eric Balthiak, who came, he's a fantastic player for us, but we were too reliant on him at the beginning of the season. And then we had the likes of Ernest Asante, who came in from a club in the Middle East, who's got a lot of experience out in Norway. And he struggled to really get going. But the past 2-3 weeks, I say even 4 weeks, he's come into his own, playing a more central striker role. He's got bags of pace. Those through balls through to him, once he latches onto it, you can't catch him. And he scored 3 goals in 3 games. So he's doing remarkably well. But there's been a lot of criticism of Mikel Duris, the guy that came in from Anorthosis at the beginning of the season. He's missed a couple of decent opportunities, which could have turned 1 point into 3. And a lot of people have gotten his back naturally, but at the same time, what he offers off the ball is an elite quality footballer. He can hold the ball up. He causes a lot of problems. We scored a goal at the beginning of the season against Ajax, and people were saying, oh, well, he didn't really do too well in that game, but his mere presence alone put off the goalkeeper, which then led to Johnny's giving us the lead right on the stroke of half time. So we need to play with versatility. We need to play with a physical presence, because let's make no bones about it, while the defending in Cyprus is shambolic, there are a lot of tough central defenders that like to get stuck in, and we need someone that can really throw their weight about. And on top of that, from set pieces, we've got a very tall team. We've got Lang, we've got Lufner, obviously with Scepovic in now. So we've got that extra height in the box that can cause problems. And we have been quite dangerous from set pieces, as we saw against your rivals. So I'm fairly pleased with the signature. Like I said, I don't know too much about him. I can only go by what I've seen on YouTube, and even that, they can make the most average footballer look like George Best or Maradona. So I can't really trust that. But can we quickly talk about his stint at Partizan when there's a little incident with a guy called Milos Kimi? If I'm not, you're smiling about this one. About Lou the Great's Champions League qualifier. What happened there?
Well, I think that the fans, it was a cumulative anger, I think, because of the fact that he was struggling that year. He was struggling to score goals. And, that was kind of one of my first years. Mitrovic, who we all know has gone on to have a fantastic career, if you would say, with Fulham and with other big clubs. Anderlecht named for the national team. One of the big points of contention, I guess you can say, was that he was given the captaincy. We had guys like Sasha Ilic was there, and we had other guys who have been longtime people at the club who were there for a long time. And he was given the captain's armband and was not playing well. That Ludogorets game especially, he was bad. There was no going around it. We had a lot of chances in that game. Even in the game before that against Isle, he had one of the worst misses I've seen in recent history, where he could have completely turned that tie around and then Isle go on the other end and score. The game goes on its head, and we never recovered from that. So the team was playing putrid at that point as well. And I think frustration came him getting the captaincy, him missing a lot of good chances, the team not materializing on a consistent domination in the domestic league, because we felt like that year was really the year we were going to go to the Champions League, because we had Lazar Markovic, we had Mitrovic, we had a really good core of young players that was bursting through, and we thought, okay, now's the time. And against Ludogorets, we completely wet the bed. And now while I don't approve ever of the fans coming down and taking what basically happened was, after the game, the players went to the south stand where the most passionate fans are, and the guy who's the leader of the ultras basically came down from the stand and walked up to him and said, "You don't deserve the captain's armband." He took the captain's armband off and threw it in the stands and said, "You don't deserve it," and got back up there, and that was it. And he was kind of, as bad as he was playing, I will never condone somebody doing something like that. And but that's basically what happened. And it was very public. And it's not the first time that it's happened. We've had Red Star fans gone on and have taken jerseys and shorts off players when they've had bad performances. Unfortunately, the way that the hooligans against the ultras, if you would say, the way they act is they're bullies. And they're going to do that kind of stuff. And it was a cumulative effect of a lot of things at the club. The club was not working well. A lot of the money from the Champions League went away. So it was like, we've had this consistency of 5-6 years of winning the league and playing in Europa League and even in the Champions League, and we're subjected to watching him be the captain. So it was a lot of cumulative stuff. They had a press conference the day after where he was basically forced and saying, "Yeah, you know what, he didn't mean it like that. He just wanted to talk with me. I gave him the captain's armband myself," which is nonsense. There's a video, you can tell the armband is stripped off of him, basically almost tears his shirt off to get it. So it was a lot of cumulative anger, and whilst it's justified to be angry at someone, you can't put your hands on somebody like that, and I don't approve of it, and I never have. And that was the incident, basically, was just his bad performances, also in the national team, because that was the time when Siniša Mihajlovic was managing the national team, and we had a string of very bad results against Macedonia. We lost. We had an infamous game against Croatia where he put out one of the worst lineups I have ever seen, and Scepovic was the starter in that game, and we couldn't get past the halfway line. So it was, like I said, it was cumulative anger that had been building a long time. It was the fact that he was basically the pet project of a manager who wasn't even there, and yet he's still being pushed through. But I wouldn't really read too much into that. It's just Serbian football being Serbian football. I think that he's matured in that sense. I think that the structure that was put in place in Vidovdan, where he had guys who used to be at Partizan who were next to him. He had Danko Lazovic, he had Marko Nikolic, who's now gone off to manage Lokomotiv Moscow in the Champions League. He had a setup that helped him get over those psychological issues. And actually, from that Ludogorets moment until he went to Vidovdan, he really wasn't doing much. He was at Mallorca, he was Olympiacos, but things weren't going well for him psychologically. But he was given a structure in which he can work. He was given a system which works for him, and he actually played very well for Vidovdan, and they got into the Europa League. They won the Hungarian League. So I think it's going to be important that, I think you mentioned the Omonia manager worked with him in the past at Vidovdan. Adam Lang used to be with him in Vidovdan. So it's important to give a setup to a player who understands what he's doing and who understands what his role is and that he's valued in that team. And that is important. It's not FIFA where you just throw guys on the pitch and they just play. Psychological factors matter a lot. I think the setup matters a lot. The formation matters a lot. Those little things help improve a player and have him show his best potential. And I think that Omonia considering their upward tick, I mean, you've just won the championship, you've been in the Europa League. It's a good moment for him to show up because he's got people around him that he can trust. He's coming into a club that's well run. There's no major problems or scandals, and it's a team that's in the upward trend.
Not
So I
anymore.
think
Not anymore.
but at least it was at one point, and I think it's a good move for him. And it's a good opportunity for him to go from Thailand football to Cypriot football is a hell of a step up. So I think, but the incident was basically that he was playing bad, and the fans got angry at him. But that happens everywhere all the time. You don't see the Man United fans coming down and taking Paul Pogba's shirt off because he's playing bad. You only see that in Serbia and places where that kind of stuff is allowed. But it is what it is. But I wouldn't really read too much into that. It was just one of those.
Would this segues me on to my next question? Do you think that was a factor for him joining Olympiacos? Because I know there's a good relationship between Olympiacos and Partizan's rivals. Yep. Whereas PAOK and Partizan are very close. So this reading about the move, it seems a bit of a strange one for me. But then again, I don't know the relationship between these two sides. So was this out left field as well?
I wouldn't really. I mean, I don't really remember much. In terms of him leaving, it was kind of okay. He's gone there, and it is what it is. I mean, we had one of our players that at least I love very much, Uroš Đurđević, who's now playing for Sporting Gijón. He went to Olympiacos, and the fans really didn't really bother them. It's not an ideal thing because Partizan and Olympiacos have kind of a shaky relationship. That goes more to basketball than it does to football, actually. But I don't think it was anything fan related. I do think that he just wanted to get out of there, though, because I think it was getting on to him, the fact that he was struggling in the national team, that he was struggling for the club. He has all this pressure now. And it was a big story at the time because you don't see fans coming from the stands and taking the captain's armband off. There's a lot of pressure for him. And I think he left. Maybe it had something to do with that. Maybe you have a point in that, but I don't think it did. And if people are holding that against him, or if people want to read more into that, then that's just petty stuff. I never read into that. Now, if you're going to a crosstown rival, for no reason, that's bad. But if you're going to a club that, you have this made-up rivalry with, like, what do I care what club in Greece is in? Except for the fact it's nice to bash Olympiacos every chance I get. But it's not like I actively care. You want to get your minutes there, go and go do your thing. So I wouldn't really read too much into that. Maybe it had something to do with it, but I think that he's shown that he's able to bounce back. Like I said, because he went from really struggling. Once he got a good system around him that cherished him and benefited him, he was doing well. Even in Mallorca, he played sparingly off the bench and did okay. So, I wouldn't really read too much into that, except that it's nice to bash Olympiacos every chance we get. But I'll leave that for another moment.
Well, it's ironic you mentioned them because I was on the Gate 7 International podcast, which is...
Love them, by the way. I love the Gate 7 podcast. I don't want to take any shots at them. It's just something different, something personal from way back. They know.
That's fine. Look, they're good boys. I asked them at the end of the show, after the show, I was like, well, what's this player like? And they're like, don't get too excited about him because he didn't do too much for us. But my argument was, well, how long ago was that? 6-7 years ago, if that. So he was 22, 23, maybe going to a different country. I know it's a similar culture, but in terms of, living in a different country, getting used to the style of play, that might have hindered him being a youngster. But he's, as you said, he's done the rounds. He went to Mallorca. I think he learned judo out there, didn't he? In Spain.
I think he did. You remind me of that. Yeah, I think he did. I don't remember that, but
so he can handle himself. He can handle himself. Played in Russia. He played in Belgium for Muskron. He played in Turkey. So in terms of this journeyman kind of footballer tag that he's bound to get for playing all these different countries, what do you think caused this? Why do you think he's not a top level player? Because as you mentioned, he's playing for the national team, and we've seen certain player playing for Fulham in the Premier League and at Newcastle as well. Mitrovic, good striker. So why couldn't he kind of be that similar player? But then again, Markovic is a bit of a nutcase as well, isn't he? Mitrovic.
Yeah, well, Markovic has been a disaster, but we'll leave that for another time. The key difference between him and Mitrovic, I think Mitro has this incredible stubbornness that I love about him, where he is just the guy. Ever since I started watching him, first of all, he's physically stronger. I think if you want to make the comparison between the two, he's physically stronger than Mitrovic. He is psychologically more prepared to deal with that kind of stuff because he came from a very difficult background. He came from a very impoverished family. And for people like that, football is the only avenue which you can succeed. Now, I don't know what the Scepovic family was like. I know that his brothers had a successful career. He's played for Celtic. He's played for other teams. So sometimes you don't have that kind of incentive to really grind where you're kind of safe and you don't have to worry about yourself financially. I think I like to value psychology in football. I think it is an important thing. People kind of throw it to the side. A lot of times players that are very good go to clubs, and because it's not working psychologically for them or they don't fit in, they struggle. You know, Angel Di Maria went to Man United and it didn't work, but, you know, nobody's saying he's a bad player. So I think that was one of the things. I think that he was nowhere near as good a finisher. I think that was one of the big footballing points is that Mitrovic, first chance I saw him, okay, this guy scores. You know, he gets two chances, he takes one. Scepovic gets two chances, he takes none. So that's a big difference in that level of football. And you know, it was also, I guess, it was also the fact that Mitro just he's crazy almost, and he used to get bookings and yellow cards and red cards. But I appreciate that kind of stubbornness and that determination where he was just willing to run through a wall, which is the way he is now when he's playing, to achieve his goals. And Scepovic never really had that kind of a drive. I don't think he ever physically developed enough. He was always kind of lanky. He knows how to set himself up, but that ability to use your body well can only work so well. Now, maybe for the Cypriot League, it works well because, let's face it, Cyprus League is not the same level as the Greek League. No disrespect. It's,
You're right.
A slightly lower level. And so in that sense, some things can work there. His height can be useful. His pace, like I said, he can move very well. But you have to develop more. If you develop intangibles, you have to have a strong foundation. He developed the intangibles that were needed to progress. But if you don't have a good foundation in terms of your finishing, in terms of your physical ability, in terms of your dribbling ability, your skills, your willingness and your ability to recover can only get you so far. And I think that was one of the main reasons why. I think the fact that, like I said, in terms of footballing aspects, he didn't improve enough as a finisher and he didn't get strong enough. And he didn't improve his heading enough for a guy who was 6'4" because he was never great at hitting the ball. So those are three factors. Now, I get 6'4" guys don't have to head the ball well. I mean, Ibrahimovic is tall, but he moves well and shoots.
He couldn't hit the ball to save his life. So, you know.
Yep. So but again, at the same time, a lot of times with players, you can pretty quickly tell who has it and who doesn't. It doesn't have to do with stats so much as you see with their movement, with their appearance, with the way that they control the ball, with the way that they open up the rest of the game. He never really developed that. A lot of his early success was on physical dominance and was on pace and strength and things like that. If you don't develop your other skills, which he never did, you're not going to progress very far in your career. It's that simple. Mitro's not a great dribbler or anything like that, but he has developed very well as a finisher in terms of shooting outside the box. His heading has improved. His tactical understanding of the game, the way he opens up space for everyone else, and the fact that he's built like a brick house. I mean, he's strong, and he also has this incredible innate stubbornness where he's going to take 3 or 4 guys on, and he's going to relish the challenge, whereas some guys are like, oh my God, I'm going to get beat up. I'm going to get long balls pumped all day, and I'm going to have to wrestle for the ball. I'm going to have to head it down and then move and then play 1-2s. They don't want to deal with it. He didn't accept his role as a target man when he should have. Mitro accepted his role as a target man and said, all right, bring it on. And when you know what you are and when you scout yourself well and you know what your values are and when you know what your limit is, it's much easier for you to go far. Scepovic never really understood that. Maybe he does now because he's gone from Thailand to Cyprus. Maybe he understands this is a new opportunity for him. So we'll see.
Well, would it be fair to say that his best spell was at Vidi in Hungary?
I would think so. I would think that was his best spell because they were playing in Europa consistently. He was scoring well in that league. He was scoring well for Partizan. I'm not going to say that he had 1 goal in 50 games. He did score goals. It was just that, you know, it was frustrating because the level of the lower teams in Serbia, the disparagement between the top teams and the lower teams in Hungary is like this. In Serbia, it's like this.
Right.
So it's kind of, when you're scoring against those lower teams, it's not really that indicator. You know, it's not a great indicator of how you're doing. And I think it was a bit done, but at the same time, he had the best manager of his career working with because Marko Nikolic is a fantastic coach, in my opinion. And he had players around him that were well. And Videoton is a club with a lot of history. It's a club that played in the UEFA Cup in Europe, you know, did well in there many years ago. They have a big fan base. They can afford to bring in big players. They brought in Roland Juchas was there. I think Jan Leksjaks was linked with them. He ended up with you guys.
Yep.
But they have the ability to bring guys in like that. And I think that was his best spell of his career. Hungarian football is surprisingly more open than people think. So that benefited him. And I would say his best spell is behind him, but I don't think you're bringing him in to score like 25 goals a season. He's going to be in rotation with the other strikers to help out. And if he accepts that role, then he could be very useful.
Well, we've been fortunate in the past 3 or 4 weeks because we've been getting goals from all over the pitch. As I mentioned, Ernest Asante has scored 3 and 3. We've got Johnny's, who's our academy graduate. He scored a couple against Buffalo. Gusanos, a player that we signed from Salamis, I believe it was, or I think it was Salamis a couple of seasons ago. He's 24 years old. And yeah, the goals are being shared around the pitch. So that's something that we've been lacking all season. And had we not had that bad patch in November, back end of October, I'm sure we'd be talking about a different amount. But then again, at the same time, had we been scoring our chances, then Scepovic probably wouldn't have joined when now he has done, so to speak. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And the thing is, for me, looking, as an Omonia supporter, granted, we want to be winning things, we want to be successful, but I think when you look at the core group of players that we got with Lufner and Lang there, we've got Lesiak, as you mentioned, Hubachan, that's won the Europa League with St. Petersburg. I can't even say it. He's in St. Petersburg. We've got experienced players there, and with Scepovic there, with a lot of Eastern European players there, I'm pretty sure he will settle in just fine as well.
Yeah, but I would agree that I think that the relationships between the Balkan nations and the Eastern European nations can be a very good thing. And like I said, the rotation with the other strikers is going to suit him well. And I think that if he takes this opportunity, I think he can be useful because he's not 35. It's not like he's been completely out of the picture. And Cypriot football is not that much different to Serbian football, teams sitting back and things like that. So that's really what it is. If he can approach it well, if he can stay in good physical shape, because that's his best attribute, he can be very useful. And the locker room's going to help him around. He has a manager that he's worked with in the past. So, like I said, it's about that surrounding where he knows what to expect. He knows what he's walking into. He's not going like, oh, last minute this is happening. Like Mitrovic he's going to Fulham, like it was a last minute thing for him. Like it was 5 minutes before the deadline, and Slavic Jokanovic calls him and says, "Oh, I want you," and then it kind of goes on, and he shows up in Fulham. It's kind of like, what's this? No, he's going to a system that he should know. And I think I want him to take good advantage. I don't want any of our players to fail, even though I didn't really like him as a player when he was playing for us. I want to see all our players do well, and who knows, maybe he gets a call up one day. Although our striker situation is pretty good right now. So, but Partizan's made a habit of bringing back guys from 2011, 2012. So maybe if we're struggling with goals, maybe we give you a ring and you can loan him to us. So
listen, you never know. Stranger things have happened,
Yep.
I don't think he's going to come in and score 15, 20 goals a season. I'll be happy with 10 goals, to be fair. And I'm sure he can do it, because the one thing I will say about Cypriot football, as unpredictable as the season has gone so far, because it's been an unpredictable season, a lot has happened in the Cypriot League, but what I will say is that the state of defending, there's so much ball watching going on, and I'm thrilled that you said he likes to make space in the box, because I think that's the one thing that we were lacking most, not just not being able to convert our opportunities, but in terms of making the most of space that's there, because a lot of times we play against teams like your Baralimnis, like your NOCs, and they will play very, very compact. They'd make the pitch narrow and they'd force us out wide. And granted, Lesiak's crossing is fantastic. He's been our best player for the past 3 or 4 games, I'd say, especially against Anorthos the other day. But when it comes to that final ball in the box, you need someone to get on the end of it. Now, as I said, Duris is good. Kalisane can mix it up a little bit, but he's still young. He's a little bit raw. You can tell he's got a lot of low center of gravity. He's not as physical as you'd like him to be. So then you're looking for the second ball. Who's going to win the second ball? And if we've got a guy in the box that's 1.9 meters, that's 6'4", that can get on the end of it, regardless of whether his heading isn't great in terms of a goal scoring opportunity, maybe a flick on, maybe just to set someone up. If he can hold the ball up, like Fellaini, for example.
Yep.
If you've got a player like that can create openings for the runners, especially in behind, because we do have a lot of runners, especially diagonal runners as well. So I'm fairly excited about it. I'm not one of these people to say, oh, well, he's going to score 15, 20 goals in a season and we'll win the league because of him. He's going to be a game changer. No, but to be an impact player, I think he'll be perfect for that role.
And also, you made a good point about the defending, because I think we've seen that in all the leagues because of the lack of time to prepare. In all the leagues, we've seen that because of the lack of practices, the crammed-in fixture schedule, goals have been flying in left, right, and center. So either you have to sit in really compact and make up for your lack of communication and quality, which is lumping people into your box in terms of quantity, or if you don't do that, you're going to get exposed, because you're going to see teams conceding left, right, and center. So that's the consequence more so of how the schedule was messed up rather than Cypriot football actually having issues, because you guys have always had sturdy defenses and well-run teams. It's just that in this situation, you look at the Premier League, you look at there's 5 goals flying in every match, with defenses that aren't too bad, but because they haven't had time to practice, they haven't had time to get used to things together. People are recovering from the virus as well. I mean, that does leave a toll on your body. So there's space to be had. And if you give him space, he can take advantage of it in limited chances. And I think that might be a good thing, is that he might open up even more space or use the space that is given to him more efficiently, because teams are just not run as well. The communication's not on point. The fixture schedule is going to be such that it's going to be crammed. He's not going to start every game, so he's going to be fresh. So there's a lot of factors working in for him that can make this a very profitable and very good situation for him. And like you said, having someone tall and having good crosses with the ball, because you guys have a bunch of different corner variations. You have good guys who can cross in from the side. It can be a very useful thing for you guys. So I think it's going to be very, very efficient for him. And I think he's going to take good advantage of it.
Fantastic. Cheers, mate. You know what? I've had a few questions from Instagram, but I think you've actually answered them before you even got the chance to ask them, to be fair. A lot of people ask, what type of player is he? Is he a target man? Is he a kind of player to hold the ball up? I think you've covered that. But in terms of his personality, what would you say? Or do you know anything about him in terms of his personal life? Is he got a family? Do you think is he a team player? Are we going to see him kind of throwing strops or just throwing the towel in, so to speak? Because we don't stand for that.
More so, I would say that if he, like I said, if he has the support system around him, I think he can play for the team. He does like to do things on his own. He does like to take the ball up and go on these Maradona-esque runs. He used to do that a lot. Sometimes it would be great. Sometimes it would just be like, oh God. Don't know much about him personally, but a journeyman career, I think, opens you up to different cultures. It opens you up to different people. It opens you up to be more understanding of things. And I think that he could use that very well. And I think he could fit in very well. He shouldn't be a problem, because he knows he's not going to start. I would assume that, like I said, I keep making the point. He went from Thailand to Cyprus. I think he knows that he's getting a good opportunity here. And if he works hard, if he gets a chance, he can take advantage of it. He has players that he knows. He has managers that he knows. So the normal rational approach would be that he shouldn't be a problem. I don't know much about him in terms of his expressions, in terms of things like that. I didn't notice anything great or bad about him. He was a regular footballer. But like you said, he has a system in place. He has an environment that he can adapt to faster because he knows some of the ingredients in that environment. And like I said, he's traveled around and he knows the culture. He knows different people. So I don't think it should be a problem in that sense. As a personal life, I wouldn't know. But I think he should be okay.
Fingers crossed. Also, one more question. Do you think he plays better as a lone striker, or does he require another player up top with him? So if we were to play a 4-2-3-1, which is effectively our chosen system, as I said before, it's working well now that Asante is there, because we've got a pacey front man that we can thread balls through to him. We've got Babulis playing in behind. We've got the wingers in Johnny's, obviously with those diagonal runs, Thiago as well. Is he suited as a one man up front, or do you think he needs a second striker with him, that possibly like a big guy, small guy,
small guy, yeah. A lot of it's going to depend on his passing abilities. He had a very good relationship with Danko Lazovic when he was playing at the Videoton, but he knew Danko very well because he was a former Partizan player. He was very well respected. He's been around the block. In the games that I saw them play, which was limited, and by the way, this is all just an opinion. I hope that I'm not misleading, and he comes out is great at the start or is terrible at the start. I haven't actively watched him or actively followed him, but from what I have seen and what I know, he's good at holding the ball up and he's good at running with the ball. But I think that either he's going to have to hold the ball for a really long time, or he's going to have to make instant decisions, in the sense that you have strikers that can hold the ball for 5, 6, 7 seconds until the wingers are coming in and until the midfielders are coming in from the second plan, or he's playing quick 1-2s. If he gets the ball and holds it for 2 or 3 seconds, and then kind of the middle period, he can lose it. He can get a bit irrational with it. So you either build around him or you give him as little to do as possible. I would say that his passing is going to be crucial because he can hold the ball up, he can dribble well. And in a one-man system, if you have wingers that are coming in from the side, that can be very useful. You can play 1-2s with the midfielders who play the lob balls for the wingers who are coming in behind. But ideally, I would say, until he gets known to the system and until he knows what the roles are, I think having a second striker up top that can take some of the pressure off him would be a good thing. And I think that because of his ability to run, which is underrated because he's not slow for a guy who's 6'4", you can actually put in another very tall guy next to him and you can have a bruiser partnership where they're winning long balls and he can actually run in behind. Or you can have a small guy who he can flick the ball on, and he can, run to the left side, and then the middle is open up for a guy to run in behind. So it's just going to depend. There's a lot of different ways to use him, but I think that it's going to, for the time being, I would say stick with 2 strikers until he gets known to the system, until he understands the patterns of the diagonal runs, the patterns of the fullbacks, because he's going to play with the fullbacks and he's going to run into the box. They're going to cross it in for him. So 2 strikers would be my personal preferred formation, and it's the system that worked best for him when he was with us. So 2 strikers is what usually worked for him. When we went to 1 striker, if you have 1 striker, you need him to be a good finisher. I wouldn't call him a good finisher. He's an average finisher. He's not bad in the sense he can't score, but you need someone who can put the ball in the back of the net consistently. Especially at this moment, he is not that. So having a second striker next to him is, I think, the right move.
Well, fingers crossed it all works out well for him, because right now he's actually liked my comment on the Omonia page. You can't even see it because I've got the thing virtual background.
Screen, yeah.
Oh no, epic fail.
Yep.
Well, he's actually liked my comment, so I'm quite happy about that. I said welcome to Omonia Scepovic goal, and he liked it. So he's
we used to call him we used to make a play on the because they call us Lata Libra Cadabra, so we used to call him Scepa Cadabra. But it was partially sarcastic.
I'm gonna write it down now.
Scepa Cadabra. It was partially sarcastic, but it can be used as a term of affection. So you can have that one for free.
Thank you very much. I've just written it down, right? I'm gonna call him that in my videos. Thank you, Aleksa. Brilliant. Well, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, man. Really, really appreciate it. And listen, if we sign another Serbian player, I'll be, honored to have you back on again. I don't know how I can help you out on anything.
No, you know what? I'm an enthusiast, and for the listeners, we do the Serbian Footy Show. 20,000 followers on Twitter. They at Serbian Footy. We have a YouTube channel. So if you guys want to listen, it's not just me. It's a whole host of other people that are all around the world. We have the members from England and from Australia and from the United States that spread it around. I think it's very good what you guys are doing, and I think it's important that the Eastern Bloc gets some content that is accessible to the Western countries, because a lot of times the media doesn't like to give respect to Eastern teams or Russian teams or teams from this part of the world. And I do think that there is a footballing fan base in those parts of the world that wants to learn about the wonders of football the way it works here, because Eastern football and Mediterranean football is much different. It's not as glamorous, and there's a lot of different things in comparison to Western football. And I think it's important that it's unfortunate that it's in English. I wish we could do it in our languages and that they were all equally respected around the world, but it is what it is. And but as long as people are listening, as long as people are entertained, it's great. I think that one of the things that's important is that podcasts don't have to be about the best teams. I think it's important you guys have podcasts about teams that don't win major trophies every season, but that compete, because that's what football's about. And it's about bringing some of the romanticism back into football, because being a fan is more than just winning. Football is a passion. Football is an escape. Football is a creative platform where you can see so many things that can make you happy even when you're not winning. I know I've kind of gone on the deep end, but it's important to know that it's important that clubs that don't have the current status that some of the big clubs have, but have the historical background behind them, do these kind of podcasts. And that's why I'm very happy to be here. I'm very glad you called me. I hope that the listeners didn't get tired of my high-pitched voice. I know they can be very irritating for some. I feel very, very happy that you call me. And anytime you want to give me a shout, it would be great. And I hope I've done well. I hope that I've given you all the information you've needed and more. Absolutely. And like I said, Happy New Year, and much success to you and to your club and to all your fans. And keep knocking on Red Star.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Are they? I don't know what's going on in the Serbian league at the moment. How are they doing? Because when we played them, they'd won 6 on the bounce.
They've won every game. Of course they have. It's just the Serbian league's a lock. Very shortly, until the political climate changes, we're not winning a title. I've resigned myself to that. Partizan's being run pretty badly. Red Star's being run okay-ish, because they've had success in the Champions League, Europa League. They have money coming in. They're going to consistently play in the Champions League qualifiers. The league is what it is. It's not balanced. People would argue there wasn't balance when we won 6 in a row. I would disagree, but it's kind of, they have a dominant lead. They have 20 wins and 2 draws or whatever. So they've been dominant. We should have beat them in the derby. We had a chance to win it. We were winning the game, and then we gave up a stupid penalty. But it is what it is. I think that we're just going to have to deal with it. We're just going to have to try and do our best to make it as competitive as possible until the last game, because I don't expect us to win it in a long time. Not through entirely through our own fault, but that in these parts of the world, that politics and other things can play a big part in who gets what. Not as much as it's in our league, but yeah.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
There's a certain team that play in yellow that have got quite a few. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, no need to go there. But yeah, you know what? I love my team, and I'm going to watch them in the 7th division if I have to. So
cool.
Screw everyone else. That's
let's
my
just hope you don't get down there. Let's just hope you don't get
yeah, we won't. Don't worry.
Well, Aleksa, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, one more thing. You're on Twitter, right?
Yep. It is at @mad_Maxiavelli. So for anyone who wants to give me a follow, you can type my name also, Aleksa Vujic, and it should pop up as well. So if you want to, it's a Twitter profile that writes mostly in Serbian, doesn't write many interesting things, but I'm an interesting guy, so you can give me a follow. I do stuff on my YouTube channel as well sometimes. I'm planning to do a big project regarding my club, hopefully sometime soon. And yeah, I'm just an enthusiast who loves to talk about the game and loves to watch the game. And I feel very honored and very privileged to be considered someone who knows something. I'm not terribly bad at what I do. And once again, thank you for having me. It's been a blast, and I feel very, very happy to be here.
Oh, mate, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you again for your time. Right, but yeah, thank you very much for jumping on and watching the show. Hope you enjoyed it. We're on, I am on Instagram at Chestel, Chestel. Give our guys, my friends, OLB. Obviously, this is on their platform, OLB on Instagram, OLB_original. They've got a Facebook page as well, the OLB. Visit that Facebook page and hit all those like buttons, share everything, because at the end of the day, they love to troll Abu Al-Qaeda as much as I do. So until next time, Govella, Bamishilla Kamu.